So, Mark, as I was just saying off air, that I imagine it's an extremely busy time for you folks at the Southern Poverty Law Center in the tracking of. I mean, is it fair to say that there has been a rise of? I mean, maybe this is just—it's even silly to ask, but a substantial rise in hate. What we call, I guess, hate attacks and organized hate groups over the course of what was the Republican and then the general election campaign, and now with the election of Donald Trump to the presidency?
Yes, I think that is fair to say. Most noticeably, one day after Trump was actually elected, we began to notice very quickly a huge spike in both hate crimes generally and lesser hate incidents. As a result, we decided that we needed to keep track of this, and we found 1,094 of these incidents around the country in the first 34 days after the election. They were clearly about Trump. We looked at the details of these threats and crimes and so on, and found that in fully 37% of the cases, the perpetrators had actually named Donald Trump, quoted his slogan, "Make America Great Again," or cited in some way his infamous comments about grabbing women. So, yes, I think there's clearly an uptick that surrounded the election. And then, more recently, of course, we have been living through a really extraordinary series of anti-Semitic attacks. We've had something like 100 bomb threats called into Jewish community centers and other Jewish institutions in the last 6 or 7 weeks. And in just the last couple of weeks, we have seen 3 Jewish cemeteries desecrated in a very major way. So there's something going on out there. And it's probably worth saying that it's not only Jews who are being attacked. We've also seen 4 mosque arsons since the beginning of January. So it's been really quite a month or two.
And before we get into some of the specifics of these, because I don't think I was even aware of the third Jewish cemetery that had been vandalized. But I mean, just to be clear here, I mean, because this is something that you have been doing for years, so we're not in. There's no possibility that suddenly your reporting processes have changed, or that you guys have just gotten really good at collecting these stories. When you guys notice there's an uptick, and a significant one at that, it is because there's an uptick, and not that you've changed your procedures in any way.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. To be perfectly candid, in the case of counting the 1,094 incidents immediately after the election, we don't have any comparable data from the month following other elections. But I think it was obvious to everyone here that we'd really never seen anything quite like that, and so tightly associated with the election. In the same way, this, I guess, is anecdotal as well, but I've been working here 18 years. Many of my colleagues have been working here close to 30, and none of us remembers anything like this spate of bomb threats or the cluster of or cemetery desecrations.
And let's before we get to to Steve Bannon, who we've spoken about on this program earlier in the show about his sort of I guess economic ideology. But before we get to Bannon and the site Breitbart under his leadership, before we get to that, can you give us a sense of the types of hate crimes and hate incidences that you have recorded, if there are any that stick out as particularly disturbing or unique in some fashion?
Well, I mean, what I would say about the spate of incidents that we saw immediately after the election was, first of all, that the bulk of them seemed to be aimed at immigrants generally and Muslims more specifically. but that the most remarkable thing about it was that virtually every minority out there was targeted. I mean, we saw attacks or lesser incidents aimed at black people, brown people, immigrants, Muslims, certainly, and really, gay people, LGBT people, and even women who are not a minority at all. So it was almost as if Trump had kind of ripped the lid off of Pandora's box, and all of these things had come spilling out. The way it looked to me was these were people who had these attitudes in a kind of subterranean way in the past, but who felt empowered by Trump's candidacy and then especially his elections to say what they really felt inside. So it was as if they had been given permission by Trump to let these demons out, to tell the world just what they thought of Muslims, of Latinos, of gay people, and so on.
I mean, there's two things that strike me. One is I'm curious if you have a sense of how that process works. I mean, this idea of permission being given by someone they don't know, to unleash what you call as these demons. And the other it strikes me is that there's two perspectives, I guess, that you can look at this from, right? One is from the perpetrator and one is from the victim. From the victims, from the perpetrators, I guess maybe these people look different, or I should say from the victims, these attacks look different, but from the perpetrator, it seems to be the common thread is that a white male heterosexual supremacy on some level.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, the one group of people who are not being attacked are white men. So, and, that makes some sense. I mean, white men still, in a sense, run this country. Obviously, we are not the same society we were in the 1950s. But, white men are at the top of the pyramid. And although much has been said about the travails of white men, especially working class and middle class white men, and that those things are true, still the situation they find themselves in is far superior to that of any minority at all. So that's the first thing. So I certainly agree with that. As far as, how do we get from what officials and people in the public eye say to criminal violence? I mean, let me say a few things. Because, it is an argument, and it's not something that one can prove. Donald Trump says this, and then we see thus and such crimes, and they are related.